who wants to chat with Glendora on public access TV in his community. There is no way defendants can refuse. Glendora talked to Hammond on the phone, listened to her request, and complied with him. Hammond concurred to notify Glendora about the matter in 2 weeks. In 2.5 months, Glendora has never heard from Hammond. Hammond also violated Title 47 U.S. Code 531E, forbidden editorial control over public access, and these defendants are state actors. They are municipally connected and controlled. There's the Hammond letter that I read you back when it happened. A man told me that Willimantic had 700 channels. Did you ever hear of a TV company having 700 channels? Now these are 14 judges in the United States District Court, District of Columbia. Their names are Ginsburg, Santilli, Henderson, Randolph, Rogers, Tatel, Garland, Hogan, Urbina, Sullivan, Robertson, Kolar, Cotelli, Kennedy, and what was the new man's name? Howard? And Glendora petitions the Judicial Council of the District of Columbia Circuit for review of the order of Harry T. Edwards, dismissing her charges against the Judicial Council of the District of Columbia. That was outrageous. He worked himself into a hole. How are we doing? We're down to the Moo defendants. Connell is a district attorney, an assistant attorney general, state of New York, is sued for attempted improper influence of a United States district judge. Arousing such bias and prejudice is strictly forbidden under 28 U.S. Code Section 144 and 454. She writes a letter to the U.S. district judge instead of a grown-up legal paper. She defied her civic duty to waive the cost of serving a summons, Federal Rules of Civil Procedure, Rule 4D, and in her access of zeal to prejudice the judge, she misrepresents and makes false statements, 18 U.S. Code Section 1001, and she tries to seduce blank. The judge, I guess, into some chicanery to deny due process. And here's defendant New. Berger, Chapman, Massell, Davis are in violation of Congress's cost and delay reduction program, codified as 28 U.S. Code 382. They are forever making motions, then asking for extensions, then missing the extensions and asking for more enlargements and condoning the same. They wanted removal, they got it, and now they can't handle it. 28 U.S. Code Section 1407, a wretched law. We can't be America until we get rid of odious removal. It is Gestapo. That's where the federal court, if you file a case in state court, and the federal court can come along and remove it, put it in their court. Now is that Gestapo or isn't it? Particularly if there's a federal defendant that you put into state court. They'll bring that over and defend the federal defendant, their buddy, and get him out of it. Oh, the courts are so depraved. Glendora opposed removal, and they deserve what they get. These are all of their papers. Now, we're going to stop. I'll give you a tease here. The rest of this lawsuit is Glendora versus Nasty Natalia, a nasty landlord. Bully judge of the village of Chatham. Bully justice court. George C. Dixon and his wife, who is the clerk. And Nasty Natalia's liar for hire, James Kleinbaum. And that's the rest of this lawsuit. So stay tuned if you want to hear this. If you don't, I would go to another channel or just go to bed. Okie doke. Why should they print income tax forms on Kleenex? Because you pay through the nose. Well, folks, let's get started on this odious job early in the morning and come back to it throughout the day. I'm going to review one of the longest legal papers I ever wrote. It's a landlord-tenant case, and I advise you, unless you're intensely interested in the situation going on in the United States of America today, of a ring of avaricious landlords, greedy lawyers, and acquisitive judges that are causing people to be homeless. Unless you are interested in that, or caught in that terrible scam going on in America today, you better go to another channel. Remember now, in 10 minutes, we must rejoice. And remember, we have to buy a table. I'm going to start off with some jokes with this somber thing. If they make cars that talk, and they make other machines that talk, why can't they make a washing machine talk and tell you what it did with the other sock? And why should IBM and Goodyear merge so they can manufacture a computer that will make snap decisions? And what happened to the man who crossed a microwave oven with a TV set? Why did he do it? So he could watch 60 Minutes in a half an hour? And who invented the upside-down lighthouse? For whom was the upside-down lighthouse invented? I'm waiting. Right, for submarines. And they would have a Disneyland in Tokyo, but the seven dwarfs would tower over the natives. And Bill quit his job at Midas Muffler. Do you know why? I think you do. He found it exhausting. A young man impressed his first date with a young lady that he was a plant manager for a large firm. But the young man's buddy set the thing straight and said, yes, he's a plant manager. It's his job to water them every day. Harold had an interesting job. It was his job to put the one cashew in a can of mixed nuts. And did you know about the man who had quite a career? He manufactured knee pads for people who wear contact lenses. And folks, what do you call a veterinarian who specializes in elephant skin disease? A pachydermatologist. All people who on earth do dwell, sing to the Lord with cheerful voice. Him serve with mirth, his praise forth tell. Come ye before him and rejoice. Now remember, we're going to rejoice at 9:30. Okay. This is the last group of defendants on the lawsuit Omnibus 21 Glendora versus Laskin, filed 2 days ago in the United States District Court, Chicago. And these last group of defendants are Nasty Natalia, landlord, Bully George C. Dixon, village justice, village of Chatham, and his wife, the clerk of the court, village of Chatham, and the village of Chatham, the Chatham police, and Natalia's liar for hire, James Kleinbaum. These defendants, and this is Xi, the Greek letter Xi, that's the name of this group, are sued for multiple violations of due process, the Fifth Amendment, the 14th Amendment, the Sixth Amendment, criminal trespass, criminal harassment, judicial misconduct and disability, violation of the professional code. They are sued for fraud, and they are sued for violation of 18 United States Code Section 1001, which says that if you lie or misrepresent or connive or cheat by trickery, whatever, you're going to get fined. I think it's $500, and you're going to go to jail. Now, pendent state claims against this group, says Glendora, are heinous violations of the New York State Real Property Law and the New York State Real Property Actions and Proceedings Law, and the New York State General Obligations Law. Plaintiff's 110-page complaint, served on March the 23rd, 04, 40-page opening statement, and 130-page complaint herein bespeak the pain to America. It follows herein. Look how big this is. Now it's 220 pages. And we're going to try to read 20 pages at a time. See if we can get through it. Complaint against defendants Bully George C. Dixon, wife clerk Joanne Dixon, James Kleinbaum, Nasty Natalia, brat sister Lydia, Marie, mother, father, brothers Carlos, and preferred country properties. If you go to Chatham, beware of all of these people. They are like a stalking lion, waiting to jump on you as prey. Alpha. Under New York State Article 13, the Judiciary Canon 3 specifies that a judge should be courteous, patient, and civil toward litigants. 2. George Dixon is the antithesis of the same. He is irascible, rude, ill-tempered, and threatening. Page 2. He is a bully. He is a bully. Additionally, he is incompetent. He does not know the law. Further, his conduct is actionable under Title 42 United States Code, Section 1983 Civil Rights, and Section 1985 Conspiracy. He is a state actor. Subject matter jurisdiction does come under Title 42 U.S. Code. On March the 23rd, 04, Dixon refused to file Glendora's defense. Again, on March the 30th, 04, Dixon refused to file Glendora's opening statement. At minimum, a court has to file a defendant's answer. At minimum, a judge has to read a defendant's defense. Glendora adds to the list of Dixon's inadequacies laziness. Add to this his fears. He's afraid Glendora's papers will upset his prejudgment to rule in favor of his friends. Dixon is 100% disqualified to discharge his duties as a village court judge or justice. Dixon is immature. His behavior is not adult. It is puerile. He makes a fool of himself. He should be censored and discharged and never allowed again to run for village justice. He is totally devoid of the temperament required of a judge, and this application doubles as a judicial misconduct complaint to the New York State Commission on Judicial Conduct. It is being sent to its chairman, Henry Berger. The Constitution of the State of New York that sets up the commission mandates that the public is protected from bad judges. The public has to be protected from bad judges. That's why we have a New York State Commission on Judicial Conduct. This is not only a judicial misconduct complaint, it is further a judicial disability complaint. The Constitution of the United States of America guarantees Glendora the right to petition her government for redress of wrong. First Amendment, George C. Dixon has violated her right to do so. This is actionable in a United States District Court. 2, it can be brought as an original action in the United States Supreme Court. It can also be brought as an original action in New York State's highest court, Judith Kaye's Court of Appeals, 7 judges. Further, Glendora petitions the New York State Office of Court Administration, courts outside the city of New York under Trafficante, to take action against unqualified Dixon, also to Jonathan Littman. Jonathan Littman is the administrator of New York State courts. He does the city of New York, Trafficante does the courts outside the city of New York. There is nothing professional about Dixon. He is a hack, he is a bully. His court, quote unquote, is diagonally opposite Empire State, quote unquote. He woefully lacks the amenities. His conduct is prejudicial to the effective and efficacious administration of the business of the courts. And what is the business of the courts? You know, I know. It's justice. But do these judges know that? No. What I just quoted from Effective and Efficacious Administration of the Business of the Courts, Title 28 U.S. Code, Section 352, Judicial Reform Act of November 2002. And paragraph 31 is reserved, and we are up to page 5. What time is it? Aha! It is your time to rejoice. What are you going to rejoice about? You're alive. You're healthy. You have to be healthy somewhere. You're not dead. And you're rejoicing because summer is here. Spring is here. And it's God's gift of beautiful warm weather and all these new leaves on the trees. And they're beautiful new green. When the leaves come out in the spring, that new green is so entrancing hue and richness and newness and freshness. Okay. We'll rejoice again at 8:45, right? I'm looking at the clock upside down, and this judge is looking at the world upside down. Beta, page 5. How did Glendora encounter Dixon? On or about August the 15th, 2003, Glendora asked landlord Natalia to repair the kitchen sink faucet. It was beyond leaking, it was running. Multiple times per day, Glendora would have to get down on her knees to turn off the water under the valve, on the valve under the sink. Glendora asked Natalia and company 7 times. It was not repaired for 9 days. 9 days is an inordinate time to take to replace a faucet washer. Glendora watched Handyman Ed replace the washer. When Handyman Ed left, she discovered he had put the faucet handle on backwards, counterclockwise instead of clockwise. He must wear a digital watch. During negotiations June the 15th to July the 1st in the year 2003, Natalia never told Glendora she would have to pay the heat, nor did Natalia promise Glendora with a copy of the lease. And she never provided a copy of the lease. Now this is fraud, and Glendora intends to prosecute. In 49 years of marriage, Franklin and Glendora would never rent an apartment that did not include heat and hot water. Natalia duped us. Also, Natalia conned us into getting the heat only from Chatham Fuel. This is antitrust, when Glendora could have got the kerosene and the propane at a much cheaper rate from another company. One Saturday in November, the furnace stopped. It was 35 degrees and chilly to the bone. Glendora was not going to wait 9 days for Natalia to repair the furnace. Glendora, who, remember, had no experience with furnaces or deliveries or heat at all, asked her church congregations if no heat at 35 degrees or below could be fatal for 9 days. They were homeowners and had the experience and said yes. Glendora called Chatham Fuel, with whom Natalia had an anti-Sherman Act bond, and Chatham Fuel said they would charge $150 just for the service call just because it was a Saturday. Glendora vehemently declined. She put in a dreadful night of 30 degrees, near hypothermia. Sunday at church, during joys and concerns, she asked the congregation if 9 days of no furnace could be fatal. Yes, said they, unequivocally. The solutions were proffered. Call one congregant's fuel company, who did not make such an outrageous charge, and who served immediately, whether it was Saturday or not. And two was another congregant's father, who is in the heating business. Said the minister, "This is the body of Christ at work. One has a problem, 2 others have a solution." Well, Dad came right after church, and in 2 hours, Glendora was back to toasty warm. Glendora gave the church the $150 that Chatham Fuel would have got. Dad's bill was circa $183. Glendora paid it, sent a copy of the bill and payment to Natalia, and said, "Please remit ASAP." Natalia refused. Glendora deducted the $183 from the rent, the next month's rent, and she has every right to do so. Gamma, another Natalia fraud. In 2 weeks of negotiating for this apartment, Natalia never said anything about Glendora Franklin paying the water bill. Can you imagine paying a water bill in an apartment? Recall, too, that she never gave Glendora a copy of the lease. Natalia began an avalanche of letters demanding Glendora pay the first quarter water bill. Apartment dwellers do not pay water bills. This is the most unheard of thing I'd ever heard of. Page 8. Next, she would ask us to pay the school taxes and the land taxes. Natalia followed with a second quarter bill and a third. Each was about $38. Circa February, the left side of the double kitchen sink would not hold water. Glendora put 2 pails under it. She was not going to wait 9 days for lethargic Natalia to replace the worn-out drain. Glendora's friend spent an hour examining the drain and deciding how to fix it, told her not to use the left sink, how to get the water out, and then use bath towels to dry it. Next day he came, he got the money for a new sink, extricated the drain, installed the new drain. Total labor was 2 hours. Glendora gave him $10 for each and circa $7 for the drain. She sent his receipt and the hardware store receipt to Natalia to remit as soon as possible. Natalia did not. Glendora took the $26 out of the next month's rent. Natalia bombarded Glendora with an avalanche of telephone calls and letters and certified return receipt requested letters, excessive to the point of harassment. Legal, CPL, what's it called? The criminal law? Penal law. New York State. Definition for harassment with intent to frighten, and no legitimate purpose. Not one was sent by regular mail, and this is the statute. 2 or 3 telephone messages on the answering machine were by imposters, claiming to be Natalia and were not. Glendora knows Natalia's voice. Delta. It transgresses New York State real property law when a landlord retaliates against a tenant. 18th, Thursday, 2004, the day after St. Patrick's Day. And she's not Irish, she's Portuguese. It and all of its fatal deficiencies are delineated on pages 1 to 14 of Glendora versus Nasty Natalia et al. Complaint, affixed hereto as Exhibit 3. It had no index number, this petition for eviction in 3 days. It was another Natalia fraud. It had never been filed. Glendora demands to see a bona fide receipt that Natalia petition was filed and that she paid $20 for on or before March the 18th. Indeed, when Glendora got to court March the 23rd, 6:30 p.m., the clerk did not have the petition on file. Glendora had to provide the clerk a copy, nor did the clerk have a case number. The process server was Chatham Police Officer Michael McDowell. Police officers are not allowed to do process serving. It was not affixed to the premises, a requirement of the New York State Real Property Actions and Proceedings Law. It was left on the door handle, in the door handle. It was not sent by regular mail, another requirement of the New York State Real Property Actions and Proceedings Law. Page 10. McDowell never saw Glendora. There was no in personam service, another requirement of the New York State Real Property Action and Proceedings Law. So even if the petition had not been bogus, had been filed, had been paid for, the petitioners, quote unquote, failed to give Chatham Village Court in personam jurisdiction over Glendora. The attorney, quote unquote, on this mess is James Kleinbaum, who should be disbarred. Further, it took short time to learn his disregard for the Code of Professional Conduct. Glendora questions his standing as an officer of the court. Nothing petitioners, quote unquote, did qualifies as substitute service. There were no 3 or 4 other attempts at in personam service. There was no due diligence. Glendora spent the next 4 days answering the bogus petition and writing her defense and writing her complaint. Glendora versus Nasty Natalia et al. It was 110 pages long and is Exhibit 3 affixed here too. Glendora's friend took it to Natalia's office to serve it on Natalia, but Brat's sister Lydia refused. Okie doke, folks, we're back for pages 21 to 40 of Glendora versus Nasty Natalia Landlord. had to do a legal paper, the papers that you have to hand into the United States District Court in Wisconsin, Milwaukee, for Glendora versus Walker. And the judge there who betrayed the United States, Charles Clavert, Jr. That's done. And here's a moment to rejoice. We rejoice for this beautiful weather, for the lilacs. For the lilacs. What a lovely color. And what a beautiful aroma. And the white lilacs, too. Folks, we're going to have to do pages 21 to 40 over. The battery ran out, and you can't tell that when you're outdoors because the sun is too bright. So we're going to do it over. Isn't that a shame? This is Glendora versus Nasty Natalia, a nasty landlord, and a bully village court justice, and his wife, who is the clerk of the court, and Nasty Natalia's flyer for hire, James Kleinbaum. Page 22. Now, here you have a realtor sporting the insignia, you know, the real estate R, the rectangle. And she doesn't know the real property law. A landlord cannot enter the premises over which a tenant has possession unless there is an extreme emergency. There was not, and still is not, an extreme emergency. New. Glendora answers the fraudulent petition, and petition is in quote unquote, and has it served on March the 23rd on Tuesday. The bogus petition with his bogus service was on March 18th, Thursday at 1:30 p.m. That's the day after St. Patrick's Day. That's when this bogus petition, quote unquote, was served, quote unquote. Friday, March 19th, Glendora read it and attacked its fatal defects. She did this with marginalia and interlinears on the faces of the 6 pages of the nullity. After that, at 10:30 a.m., she presented her graphic evidence of mud to Natalia, which Natalia knocked all over Natalia's office and all over the carpet. Natalia treats her tenants like mud. Glendora had urgent errands 10 miles south in Hudson, and these were done around 3 p.m. She wrote for 4 hours her answer to the bogus petition and her defense, incorporated both into a new lawsuit, a complaint, and it was 110 pages long. And here is the summons, and here is the complaint. Saturday, March the 20th, she had to edit her TV program and make 42 dubs. A chat with Glendora, which often reports on court happenings, federal, state, and municipal. She is on 42 TV stations, including Oregon, New Mexico, Buffalo, Albany, Dutchess, Westchester, Bronx, Manhattan, Queens, Staten, Brooklyn, all of Long Island, and Washington, D.C. Also, it is on Binghamton, Middletown, Bergen County, New Jersey, Litchfield, and Fairfield County. This editing took 9.5 hours, and when it was finished, Glendora continued writing the complaint for about 5 more hours. Sunday, March the 21st, the vernal equinox. Before church, she wrote about 2 hours. After church, she wrote 5 hours, and the writing was done of that 110-page complaint. For 3 hours, she telephoned the classified ads, the rentals, and she paid $3.50 for all the newspapers, to find a new apartment, and she made an appointment to see one on Monday at 5:30 p.m. Monday, March the 22nd, she was all day printing in 8 sets of 110 pages. Complaint, collating it, stapling it, and labeling it in the names upon which to serve it. She was in her home all day. This was the day that Ed appeared at the door at 1:15 p.m. and the day that 11:15 a.m. and the day that the inspection notice was posted on the window with insane banging on the window, another access of fury. The complaint was not ready to file until 4:30 p.m. and that was too late. Tuesday, March the 23rd, Glendora went to Town Hall to file the complaint and get an index number and get a date stamped and pay. And there was no court. The court is closed all week except for 6:30 p.m. Tuesday. Regardless, defendants should have a copy to prepare for the hearing, quote unquote, scheduled this night at 6:30 p.m. Glendora got a friend over 18, not a party to the action, to serve a true copy on Natalia. Lydia refused service and locked the door. And it's a glass door so that you can see right in it, and it's between two glass windows so you could see right in there, so you knew everything that was going on in that office, in that real estate office. Preferred Country Properties. If you go to Chatham, stay away from Preferred Country Properties. Lydia refused the service. She locked the door, and the friend left the paper at the stoop, at the threshold. Omicron. At 5 p.m., Glendora reviewed the illegal and legal papers, dressed up, and went to Town Hall at 6 p.m. The door was locked. She stood outside 15 minutes. A policeman let her in. It was McDowell, who illegally served, quote unquote, Glendora the illegal petition, quote unquote, on March the 18th, Thursday. Around 6:15 p.m., a man unlocked the door from the outside. A woman was with him. Another man came in with them. The first man was George C. Dixon, the justice of the village court, village of Chatham, Columbia County, state of New York, United States of America. The woman was Joanne Dixon, his wife. The second man was a lawyer. Joanne Dixon is the clerk of the village court. Her husband is the justice of the village court. Now, how is that for nepotism? Glendora waited 5 minutes. There were 3 more lawyers. The lawyers were fraternizing with Dixon. And then Glendora asked, "Is this where I filed my complaint?" Joanne Dixon said yes, and asked for time to get things in order. 5 minutes later, Clerk Dixon fetched Glendora. Judge Dixon stepped in and said he would not file Glendora's complaint. Herein is the first cause of action against George C. Dixon. Dixon would not file Glendora's answer and defense. Bear in mind that Glendora had been fraudulently summoned to appear in court. Petitioners had failed to give the court jurisdiction over her pursuant to the New York State Real Property Actions and Proceedings Law. Glendora was there on a hoax. The clerk did not have a copy of the petition, quote unquote. None had been filed. Glendora gave the clerk her copy. Does it have to have an index number? Or does it have an index number, Glendora asked the clerk, and the clerk says no. Clerk made no more to move to give it one. George Dixon said again he would not accept it. How can I be called to court on a petition that doesn't have an index number? Glendora went back to the lobby of Town Hall and waited for an hour. Her time and life were being consumed on a hoax. Circa 7:15 p.m., the eviction, quote unquote, was heard. Glendora went to a table where Dixon was seated. Kleinbaum sat across the table from him. Natalia was seated next to Kleinbaum on his left, and Glendora stood pursuant to court respect. 1 o'clock, and we're going to rejoice. What are you going to rejoice about? The lilacs. Oh, what a beautiful, beautiful lilac color. Lavender, and the aroma that comes from them is so sweet. And God is a great creator, and it makes us happy. And the white lilacs, too. We're on page 30. Kleinbaum said Glendora was being evicted for a non-payment of rent. A lie. Glendora had paid the rent in full. Kleinbaum, Littletree, that's translated into English, said $183 were owing for January. That was because I fixed the furnace, I paid for it, and I sent the money to Italia. She didn't, I sent the receipt to Italia, she didn't pay for it, so I took it out of the rent. And $27 for fixing the sink drain. Another thing that I paid for and asked her to pay for, and she did it, so I took it out of the rent. And then Kleinbaum said $120 for water. Well, this is an apartment. Have you ever heard of paying for water in an apartment? Dixon said, I see, she's owing $183 for January, and repeated Kleinbaum's lies. Neither gave Glendora an opportunity to speak. After more of this, said Glendora, I have a few things to say. These petitioners have not given jurisdiction over this respondent. The petition is fatally defective. It does not follow the New York State Real Property Law, nor the New York State Real Property Actions and Proceedings Law. If the petitioners disagree with me, then I will request a Travis hearing. I object to the court saying that I owe this and this and this and that. I do not owe anything. Dixon's head was spinning. Kleinbaum kept interrupting like a Neanderthal of no amenities. Dixon said, ma'am, I will offer you counsel if, no, thank you. Glendora said, pointing to the 110-page complaint, I need to file this. Dixon said, well, I'm not going to take this. Dixon asked, what is your last name? It seems he should know, and he should have known, that had the petition, quote unquote, been properly filed, and had Glendora truly been on the calendar, the petition, and had the petition been filed and paid for. Insert, there's no calendar was posted publicly. No calendar was publicly posted. Now how's that for a court? The court has to have a calendar and it has to be publicly posted. Dixon was over-exercised. He was abrasive and pugnacious. He threatened to lock up. He massaged his red-faced countenance with his right hand and pencil between fingers, and he avoided eye contact. Then he finally said, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'll adjourn this until next Tuesday. When he said he would not file her complaint, Glendora said, this is my answer, my defense. You are not going to file it? That's very bad. Then, out of the blue, and from nowhere, he said Glendora could file it. Glendora took $15 cash out of her pocket to get ready to do for the clerk. Belligerently, Dixon said, red-faced, you don't file it with me, ma'am. You file it with the clerk. He raised his voice and beat red facials. He is overweight, irascible, tyrannical, and autocratic. He, Kleinbaum, and Natalia indicated by getting up that it was over. You know, I think you should say that the hearing is over for the time being. Glendora headed for the clerk's office, a closet off the room where the bench quote unquote, and chairs are. A policeman would not let her go by. She exited the bench room and tried the clerk's office, the closet door that opens up into the lobby, and it was locked. She returned to the room and said to the policeman, I have to file the paper. I can't get by that door out there, and I can't get by you. He said with the same irascibility as Dixon, when the clerk is ready, I'll let you by. You give these guys a badge and a pistol and a uniform, and they think they own the world. Clerk Joanne Dixon began typing up an action. Dixon came in and said, I'm not taking this. Again, pointing to the complaint. Here's what Joanne typed up. And this second paper she gave me blank. She didn't fill it in. I was left to my own on that. And then Joanne Dixon says, I have it wrong. You're not the defendant. All the time the poor woman had to keep an ear as to what was being said at the bench. I said, I'll come back another time if it's easy for you. She says, no, that's all right. She gave Glendora a receipt for the $15, and she said she was Joanne. She did not say Dixon, nor that she was the wife of the justice. She refused the nasty Natalia. I named the lawsuit Glendora versus nasty Natalia, Brat's sister Lydia, and so forth. Just Natalia. She said it would be returned to her. Glendora said, well, all right, then in that case, I will serve it, or have it served. Glendora told her about suing Bruiser Ken in the Eastern District of New York, Brooklyn, federal court, and deleting nasty from the caption is forbidden editorial control. Infra is the paper that the clerk gave Glendora, I guess. Glendora was wearing a purple dress hat, a purple jacket, a purple tie, and was carrying a purple folder. The town court clerk now, not the same as the village court clerk, Joanne, had given Glendora Dixon's telephone number on a purple post-it. Joanne said to Glendora, "You like purple, don't you?" And that made Glendora laugh, and Glendora commented that it had got out of hand today. Clerk Joanne Dixon was civil, amicable, helpful, and did the job of the antithesis of her husband, George Dixon, the village justice. And there's a copy of the receipt. $15 for filing the action. Glendora left the clerk's office around 10 minutes to 8. We're on page 38. The lobby was still packed with people. About 60 people came in and went out, and over the time that Glendora was there, and there was not enough seating and people were standing. Insert. Before court began, when Glendora was trying to file her complaint, she put the 110-page paper onto a table in the so-called courtroom. Dixon said, "Don't put anything there, that's my bench." Nobody called the court, it's a table. Nobody called the court to session. There was no notice. The court was convening. No hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. Nobody could fill it. Could tell it was in session. Dixon would have better spent his time before the court opening reading Glendora's answer and defense instead of chit-chatting with lawyers about this and that and small talk. Dixon is overweight. His face is bright red. He appears to have high blood pressure. While Glendora was working with the clerk filing the small claims action, Dixon exited his bench 6 feet away and came into the file cabinet clerk's office and began searching the file for folders for paper. Glendora stood up to attention, a long ago established reflex when she sees a judge, and George Dixon said, "Sit down." So she did, and continued working with Joanne Dixon on the filing of a small claims action to be heard April 13th. George C. Dixon's bluster evokes memories of Mr. Flubberdub on Howdy Doody, a program on WRGB Channel 6 the same years that Glendora was on Channel 6, the General Electric station, WRGB, in Schenectady, the SS Glendora and Satellite 6. Pi R squared. The teacher intoned, and the little girl says, "No, pi R round." The Sixth Amendment states clearly that criminal hearings must be public. The person charged must have a public hearing. Well, this courtroom was too small for the public to fit in. Further, Glendora has a Fifth Amendment to be faced by her accuser. Natalia was there, but she would not face Glendora. Bogus call to court. This is wrong. Do not forget this was a fraudulent call to court. Glendora was not properly served on 3 counts. New York State Real Property Actions and Proceedings Law was violated on 3 counts. Petitioners failed to give the court in personam jurisdiction over Glendora. Now, this is actionable. Perpetrators of this hoax will be prosecuted. Stay tuned. Glendora spent 3 hours' time, labor, and money attending this bogus call. All right. Let's have some comic relief. That is pretty comical in itself. A foreman of a coal mine hired an Irish man, a Polish man, and a Japanese man. He said to the Irish man, "Your job is to bring out the big chunks of coal out of the mine." He said to the Polish man, "Your job is to break them into small pieces." And he says to the Japanese man, "I'm putting you in charge of supplies." So the foreman went away. He came back in the afternoon. The first 2 men had done their job fine, and he asked them, "Where is the Japanese man?" They said, "We don't know. We haven't seen him all day." So the foreman went into the mine. He's going down a long, narrow, dark corridor. And the Japanese man jumps out and says, "Supplies!" Why does the doctor tiptoe past the medicine chest? so he won't wake the sleeping pills. The operator said, that'll be $1.89. And the customer says, operator, I asked you to reverse the charges. And the operator says, okay, that's $9.81. This priest, right after Easter, you know, they worked very, very hard during February and March. And this priest wanted to go and be alone and meditate. He wanted to go where nobody would recognize him or know that he was a priest. And he went to Hawaii, and he bought a loud shirt, and he bought a loud pair of shorts. And he's walking down the beach, and here's this beautiful woman in a bikini. And she said, hello, Father. The priest was devastated. He went back to the store, and he says, I want a louder shirt. I want a louder pair of shorts. I don't want anybody to know. And he's walking down the beach. Says, next day, and here's this beautiful woman in a bikini. And she says, hello, Father. He said, ma'am, would you mind telling me how you knew that I was a priest? And she said, I'm Sister Martha over at the parish. And poor Harry died and went to heaven, and St. Peter says, you can't come in. And Harry says, but I did so many good things back on earth. St. Peter says, yeah, for instance. Well, Harry says there was this motorcycle gang, they attacked this woman, and I went up and I defended the woman. And I went right up to the leader of that motorcycle gang, and I kicked him in the shins. St. Peter says, that's not bad. How long ago did this happen? And Harry said, 3 minutes ago. The teacher was trying to drill into the children the concept of perseverance. She says, what would you call someone who keeps his mind on the goal, keeps his eyes straight ahead, never looking to the left, never looking to the right, but presses onward toward his goal? And the little boy says, a truck driver on I-95. It was a bright spring day, and a worm comes out of the ground, and 3 inches away he sees another worm, and he says, you're beautiful, I love you, I want to marry you. And she says, oh, stop it, I'm your other end. The man had the nickname Quits, and the woman says, that's a funny name for anybody to have, how'd you get that name? And the man says, well, when I was born and my father came in to see me, he said to my mother, let's call it quits. And the teacher was trying to teach hibernation, the concept of hibernation. And she says, I want an example of somebody who crawls away into a hole and stays in the dark and the cold all winter long, never stirs a muscle, and doesn't come out on spring. Now what's an example of that? And Billy says, a baseball fan. This is Glendora, Chat with Glendora, on 42 different TV stations. We're reading you the very sad tale of a very nasty landlord named Natalia, and a bully judge or justice named George C. Dixon, and of his wife, the clerk of the same court, and of Natalia's liar for hire, James Kleinbaum. Folks, a storm is imminent. We have had enough water, but I've got this towel here in case it starts. We're telling you about a nasty landlord named Talia in the village of Chatham, about a bully justice there in the village of Chatham named George C. Dixon, and his wife, who is the clerk of the same court, and about their liar for hire, James Kleinbaum. And this is a very long paper. We're going to try to do pages 41 up to 60 right now. There's 220 pages. So unless you're intensely interested in landlord-tenant, I would go to another channel. This is Glendora, Chat with Glendora on 42 TP Systems. 184 Sigma. March the 24th, Wednesday at 11:40 a.m. Natalia crossed Glendora's threshold. The signs clearly said, "Do not enter," and "Possession is by the tenant." Natalia violated Glendora's possession of the premises. She rapped at the inner door and shouted, "Please open the door. We are not coming today, we are coming tomorrow." She taped another paper to the window. If any claim of 24-hour notice becomes relevant, this was not 24-hour notice. Natalia left the premises of which Glendora has possession. At 1 p.m., this is tall, these are Greek letters. At 1 p.m., Glendora knocked on a neighbor's door. "I'll be right out." We had set this time to take a load to the Glendora Franklin Museum. The neighbor began loading the museum boxes, the rugs, the desks, the cabinets, the folding chairs, et al., until we had filled his truck and Glendora's car. During that hour, 1 to 2 p.m., Natalia was wandering over the property, around and around Glendora's abode, outside in the company of a stranger whom she never identified. She kept getting in Glendora's way as Glendora was trying to get the museum articles located into the vehicles. The neighbor had only from 1 p.m. to 2:45 p.m. to do the job, and there was no other time he could do it. The point is that Glendora wanted to get Natalia off the premises and wanted to call the police, but Glendora had to forego the same because a museum job would not get done. Glendora videotaped Natalia and stranger. Natalia kept getting in Glendora's way. Glendora was bringing out an article through the open door, and Natalia closed it. Natalia actually picked up a possession of Glendora, a 2-gallon gas jug, and did something with it. It disappeared. Natalia would leave the property with the man, stranger. Glendora would heave a sigh of relief that she was gone, and then she and the man would return, and Glendora would become stressed again. This happened at least 3 times. When Glendora was standing inside the premises, Natalia and stranger went by the window and looked in. Natalia left, the stranger stayed, and took photos of Glendora's possessions in the neighbor's truck. This was invasion of privacy, and took photos of me in my home. Natalia also took pictures of Glendora at Glendora's home, which also is a charge of invasion of privacy. Glendora will include in her lawsuit against Natalia et al. Natalia was spying and was finding out things that Glendora did not want Natalia to know. She insulted Glendora and said, "She put down fertilizer, that's why it smells so bad." Well, Glendora did not put down fertilizer. During the entire hour of Natalia's intrusion with a stranger, never identified, Glendora did not speak to either. Regardless of the invasion, Glendora concentrated on getting the right articles into the museum. The moving of these articles was something Glendora decided on long before the Natalia insanity erupted, March the 18th, Thursday, the day after St. Patrick's Day. These articles were not in use daily and are to be preserved and perpetuated in the museum. The moving of them started Sunday, March the 21st, the vernal equinox. Another neighbor took so many boxes of files and tapes to the museum, the job was consummated the day after Natalia's snooping, March the 24th, Wednesday visit. A third neighbor did the third trip to the museum. The neighbors were wonderful. The museum is all set now, and the job is done. This is Section Upsilon. March the 25th, Thursday, Glendora was alert and vigilant, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., making sure to be on her premises and to protect them from Natalia's threatened invasion. Posted on Glendora's window yesterday. The time was not wasted during the vigil. Glendora progressed productively on a legal paper. 11:30 a.m. rolled by, a half an hour to go before, and Glendora was hoping that Natalia and technician Ed, he's a handyman, she called him a technician, and he put the faucet on backwards, had thought better of it. Glendora had placed a barricade of shovels, tubs, and a roller table inside her outside door. The door continued to have the signs on it: "Do not enter. Possession is by the premises, is by the tenant." The audio tape recorder and the videotape recorder were in position and standing by, and the telephone numbers were in view. But alas, we didn't make it until the noon deadline. At 11:44 a.m., Natalia and Ed crossed the threshold. Additionally, they touched and handled Glendora's possessions. It was break and enter. Natalia knocked on the door and said, "Please open the door." Glendora did not and said nothing. Instead, she dialed 392-3451, Chatham Police, and said, "This is an emergency. The landlord is trying to come onto my premises. I'm the tenant, and I have possession of the premises. The landlord is allowed on the premises only in cases of extreme emergency. There is no extreme emergency. I am terrified." The woman who answered said, "I'll send somebody immediately. What is your name?" Glendora. "Thank you, officer. What is your name?" She says, "I'm Darlene, and I'm a secretary." The phone desk from which Glendora summoned the police is just inside the door where Natalia and Ed were standing. She could easily hear Glendora summoning the police. Natalia and Ed speedily retreated. He got in his green truck in the driveway as fast as he could, and she got into her black truck behind it, instantly backed out of the driveway, never to be seen or heard from again. At last, we taught her what possession of the premises means. She can't have both. If she wants the money, I'll sell her back the possession of the premises. But if she wants possession of the premises, she has to give me the money. Why? Why were they so petrified of the police? What had they done wrong to get out of the way so quickly? Reader, you know, violation of possession of the premises, violation of warranty of habitability, and violation of repetitive harassment, inter alia. Note, that's what you just witnessed. 5. The police did not come until nearly 15 minutes. Had the policeman stopped at Natalia's first? Natalia's office is halfway between the police station and Glendora's home. The officer was Michael McDowell, the one who had done the insufficient service on Glendora. Glendora cordially welcomed him in, opening both doors widely for him. He saw the TV camera, and he says, "It's pretty gray up there. Not that we need rain." "Am I being taped?" he said. I said, "Yes. Is that all right?" He said, "No." And I said, "Well, I'm sorry. You're in my home." We are on page 50 out of 220. Glendora repeated verbatim what she had said to Darlene 15 minutes ago. The knob on the inner door was being turned. McDowell reached to open it. Glendora says, "Don't open that door." Glendora hastily said. Before she could stop it, a man entered. "This is my house." "I'm Chief Bone," said he. Why was it necessary to have the chief there? McDowell said immediately, "We are being recorded." The chief says, "Oh, that's okay." Glendora has noticed the sensitivity of police being recorded the past 3 years. Why is this, folks? I think it's because of the Rodney King taping in Los Angeles. Glendora repeated what she had just said to McDowell, and she repeated it to Bone, and what she had just told Darlene. Captain Bone said the landlord could inspect premises if a 24-hour notice was given, and Glendora says no. The law says only in extreme emergency. That would indicate that he did stop at Natalia's, and Natalia told him that, and he was taking it on hearsay. McDowell said, and also if the landlord wants to show the place, and Glendora said adamantly, the law says only in an extreme emergency. She mentioned the New York State Real Property Law and the New York State Real Property Actions and Proceedings Law. Can you hear it? The angels bowling? Chief Bone said, I recommend you see your attorney about this. Glendora says, no. I am pro se. A second time Bone said, I recommend you see your attorney about this. And Glendora said, no. Now it does not seem right that the police should drum up business for attorneys. And I object to that. Do you? It's raining. How do you spell your name? Glendora asked the chief. And he says B-O-E-H-M-E. Oh! Glenn thought of the Italian opera, La Boheme, the popular Italian opera. Oh, it's so beautiful. The leaves just coming out on the trees, and the leaves that beautiful tender green. Shall we tough it out for another page on 52? Bone left as fast as, and as something as he arrived. Bone left as fast and as wordlessly as he arrived. Glendora, as she exited with McDowell, said, thank you for answering a citizen's summons. Said McDowell, call us anytime you need us. He's kind of cute. That ended the illicit encroachments of nasty Natalia. For the first time in days, Glendora had peace, quiet, serenity, and safety, enjoyment of the premises of which she had possession, vis-a-vis her warranty of habitability, and the harassment had stopped. See you folks, it's too much for the camera. We'll go inside. Stand still. Okay, let's continue. We're going to put a flag here. The flag that George McDermott gave me. He brought me a flag all the way up from Washington, D.C., and a very expensive flag, folks. Look, very, very expensive. Really well stitched and really nice. See how well made it is? And I should, I was amazed that he had spent so much money. And he said the nicest thing that anybody's ever said to me. He says, that's right, you earned it. Fighting for your country. Well, thank you. Thank you, thank you. That ended the illicit encroachments of nasty Natalia. For the first time in days, Glendora had peace, quiet, security, and safety, enjoyment of the premises of which she had possession, vis-a-vis her warranty of habitability, and the harassment had stopped. She finally learned a lesson, nasty Natalia. Glendora asked several neighbors to serve the second summons on Natalia, and they demurred. Well, I don't blame them. Finally, Glendora asked an adventuresome young man if he would serve the summons for $20. That made the difference. He did, with alacrity. She gave him the audio tape records, the recorder. Brat's sister Lydia said, I don't want this. And Brat, young man, says, I don't care. Natalia called him into her office and interviewed him and this is on the audio tape. He came back to Glendora, and both went to the bank and had the service notarized. Natalia was served in persona. Insert. This is Psi. Greek letter. March the 21st, Sunday, after chores, writing the 110-page complaint against Natalia, and after church, and after finishing writing her 110-page complaint, page 25, within, Glendora called all the apartment rentals in the 7 newspapers that she bought. She bought $3.50 worth of newspapers. And she made an appointment for 1, for 5:30 p.m. Monday. Weeny, weedy, winky. She came, she saw, she conquered. She placed a deposit on it, and on Wednesday, March the 22nd, after the neighbor had got the second load to the museum, even though it was the first one I saw. I loved it, and I took it. First one. Even though Natalia continuously harassed Glendora for an hour, Glendora got out 2 money orders to take possession of her new premises. Here is the paper that the young man served on Nasty Natalia, Village of Chatham, Preferred Country Properties. Where Glendora sued Nasty Natalia for $3,000. Omega. Thursday, March the 25th, after Natalia was served, Glendora's small claims action, scheduled for April 13th, a third neighbor took the furniture and the bed to the new place. The neighbor and his friend took the last of the furniture to the museum. Neighbor and friend took the last of the furniture to the new place. The rest I could do. We were rid of Nasty Natalia. Friday, March the 26th was a day of peace, with no harassment by Natalia, no violation of warranty of habitability, except the mud, and no violation of Glendora's possession. She settled in the new place, and she took file boxes to the museum. What day was that, folks? March the 26th, Friday. This background will look a great deal better when we put up the flag. Saturday, March the 27th at 7 a.m., Glendora took $20 file boxes to the museum. I did that home. When she returned, she packed the clothes and emptied the drawers in the 2 bedrooms. She took this She took them, I guess, and positioned them. Another 20 boxes, and mid-afternoon, she did another. I did them all by myself. 2 trip of 20 boxes. 60 for the day. And positioned them. Everything fit nicely. Now, I think that ability to lift all those heavy boxes, some of them 30, 40 pounds, I think that ability comes from doing those little morning exercises that I've been doing for years every morning. I do those exercises. I showed them to you once. And Saturday evening, March the 26th, Glendora emptied the kitchen articles into the boxes, all of the same size and shape, uniform and neat, and they were ready to be mailed. And that was the last night that I slept with the kitties. Penny, and Sheba, and Christina, and Chase, and Charlotte. That was our last night together. By mistake, Glendora left a blue bale pail square under the kitchen sink. She also left a red 3-foot by 2-foot scatter rug on top of the second stoop into the inner door. She would like both of these back. Their costs were $6 and $12 and show wear, and she retrieved the pot and soil with the plants on Tuesday, March the 30th. Well, I never got them back, and I never will, because we're not dealing with honest people. We're dealing with renegades, reprobates. Beta Beta. Sunday morning after chores, Glendora took a load of 20 boxes to her new place. It was around 7 a.m. Then she took another load of 20 boxes to the museum. It was Sunday, March the 28th, and it was church time. And she went to service. First time I'd ever been late. She came to the old place. The 3 kids, Courtney and Devin and Megan, were sad to see her leaving, and they cried. With their help, the last of the boxes, 20 equals 60 total for the day, were loaded, and all remaining articles cleared out except the 2 forgotten pieces mentioned in Alpha Alpha. Glendora positioned these 20 boxes, and all looked very nice. She came back to the old place and took care of the second car. She vacated the premises at 6:45 p.m., March the 28th, Sunday, 2004. She put this notice through the office door, 19 Central Square, Chatham, 12037, of the Natalia Enterprise. Glendora vacated the premises 29B Center Street, Chatham, Sunday night at 6:45 p.m., March the 28th, 2004, Anno Domini. Please mail to her $15 for March the 29th, $15 for March the 30th, and $15 for March the 31st, together with her security deposit of $435 plus 9% statutory interest from June 15th, 2003. You have 3 days to do this. Her designated address is Glendora, Box 124, Ghent, New York, 12075. Glendora will mail you the key 3 days after she receives payment in full as detailed super. Yours in truth, and in Armo Patriae, Glendora, 914-949-9495. Glendora slept in her new place, and she slept nicely the first night in her new premises. March the 28th, Sunday. Okay, folks, that's our quota for right now. What are you going to do with it? You want to stay up and listen to this? Go on and on and on and on, but I'm sorry, a record has to be made of it. I certainly don't want to do it. So, Marilyn says, whenever I'm down in the dumps, I buy new clothes. And one of the other ladies says, I was wondering where she got them. Sign in the restaurant window, do not make fun of our coffee. Someday you will be old and weak, too. Hokey smokes. Stop right where we are. We have to rejoice. Let's rejoice for that beautiful rain, even though we don't need it. And we haven't needed it every day, practically, since last summer. And I think that's my fault. When poor Frankie was breathing his last few months, and it was 97 degrees every day and 97% humidity, he would sing his little rain song, asking for rain, and I would pray for rain. And so it's all my fault. It's been raining ever since. That would be 2 years ago. That was in the year 2002. And it rained every day practically ever since. And that means that somebody is not getting the rain that they need, that we're getting it all, and that's not nice. And Marilyn said about her brother-in-law that he's worn that suit so many years that it's come into style 3 times. And why do they call the Judge Sanka? No active ingredient in the bean. And today's college graduates, you have to feel sorry for them. They go out in the cold, cruel world, folks, and they face enormous challenges. And 2 of those are reading and writing. And one college is graduating so many functional illiterates that they're putting their diplomas on cassettes. And Bill said that when he was in college, he kept the women running in circles, and his wife says, yes, he was a track coach. You know, we have BA, right? And we have BS, you know what that stands for. And we have MBA, what does that stand for? More bad advice. And PhD stands for what? Piled higher and deeper. The college athletic department has 3 doors. One says, if you're too tall to go through to this door, report to the basketball coach. If you're too wide to go through this door, report to the football coach. And if you kicked in this door, report to the hockey coach. And this guy had his girl out on the first date, and she said, what do you do? And he says, I'm on the cutting edge of technology. And his buddy said to the girl, what that means is that he mows the lawn at IBM. Okay, let us take a break. A big one. Oh, I got to tell you about the legal papers that were just mailed. $105 to the United States District Court in Milwaukee to appeal the traitorship of Charles N. Covert Jr., the traitorship to the United States. Boy, it's raining hard now, and I'm just another drip. Look at it, come down. The summonses of about 30 defendants to the United States District Court in Omaha, Nebraska, for the clerk to sign them and emboss them, send them back to me, and I have to serve them. A $5 money order to appeal bully George C. Dixon. Insane. A letter. $58 to remove the postal box, box 416, White Plains, New York, 10602. For a year. Every day, money, 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 money. Everybody wants your money. And quite a few of the in-mail details. $5 to Arbor Day. Maybe I've got a list of what had to be done here. $5 to Arbor Day. I can't read you these papers now because I'm in the middle of this 220-page report. A letter to my brother about the cute pictures that he took and of a tape he sent me by Jimmy Dean. Brooklyn again. Crazy people in Brooklyn, that would be Heinemann and Vega and Allman. They keep sending back my papers and will not file them. And they keep saying the case was closed. Well, the case is not closed until a judgment is issued, and no judgment has ever been issued, or at least not to me. Charles N. Covert Jr. for traitorship to the United States. Boy, it's raining hard now, and I'm just another drip. Look at it come down. The summonses of about 30 defendants to the United States District Court in Omaha, Nebraska, for the clerk to sign them and emboss them, send them back to me, and I have to serve them. A $5 money order to appeal bully George C. Dixon. Insane. A letter. $58 to renew the postal box, box 416, White Plains, New York, 10602. For a year. Every day, money, 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 money. Everybody wants your money. And quite a few of the in-mail details. $5 to Arbor Day. Maybe I've got a list of what had to be done here. $5 to Arbor Day. I can't read you these papers now because I'm in the middle of this 220-page report. A letter to my brother about the cute pictures that he took and of a tape he sent me by Jimmy Dean. Brooklyn again. Crazy people in Brooklyn, that would be Heinemann and Vega and Allman. They keep sending back my papers and will not file them. And they keep saying the case was closed. Well, the case is not closed until a judgment is issued, and no judgment has ever been issued, or at least not to me. Okay. And the Securities Exchange Commission, I wrote another letter to William Donaldson, and I told him that I wanted an investigation of Charles F. Dolan and Cablevision Systems Corporation. Because his efforts to keep me a shareholder, out of the annual meeting, his efforts to keep me from seeing the shareholders list, the books, records, and minutes, 107 times. When I'd go to see the books, records, and minutes, he would call the police, the Nassau County Police. I guess that's most of what's gone on before these reports to you. So keep the Kirby's flaming. Isn't that nice? This is the dismal story of a nasty landlord, nasty Natalia of Preferred Country Properties in the village of Chatham, and bully town justice, really village justice, in the village of Chatham, George C. Dixon, and his wife, who is the clerk of the same court, and Natalia's liar for hire, James Kleinbaum. And we are up to page 61, and this is Gamma Gamma. After morning chores on March the 29th, Monday, and the first day, for days, that Glendora did not have to pack, load, drive, unload, and position, Glendora began writing her opening statement for the hearing. Hearing is quote-unquote tomorrow night, Tuesday, March the 30th. The same is affixed here too as Exhibit B. Petitioners, and petitioners is quote-unquote because they really had no standing, presented no exhibits 1, 2, 3 at all. It took all morning to write it. It took all afternoon to print it, 40 pages. By twilight, it was finished, and it was ready to serve. Delta Delta. After chores, Glendora went to Chatham and submitted her 40-page opening statement for tonight. The door to the so-called courtroom was open. Nobody was there. Glendora placed it with the complaint of March the 22nd, 110-page one, affixed there too, into the seat of the chair of George C. Dixon, of the chair to his so-called bench. Bench is quote unquote. From another room, a woman called, "May I help you?" And Glendora told the woman what she had done, and the woman was pleasantly helpful, and her name is Laura. Next, Glendora walked to Kleinbaum and served a copy on him by leaving it on the first desk of a woman on the telephone. Next, she served the Natalia Enterprise, the 40-page opening statement for tonight, and Glendora opened the office door across from Town Hall and dropped the opening statement on the floor and left. Glendora visited a neighbor. Glendora does not dine out. She likes to know what she is eating, and she's a strict vegetarian. Yea, she's even a vegan. Because nasty Natalia disrupted her home so severely, Glendora was not able to prepare a home meal Sunday, March the 28th morning, nor Monday noon, March the 29th, so she had to eat out. One was $8.44. The other was $8.55. And Natalia is liable for both of these. Epsilon, epsilon. Second phony, bogus, illegal, false call to Chatham Village Court. We're up to page 63. In the afternoon, sans any morning chores, there was time to catch up on some backlogs caused by Natalia's insane behavior. First was some praying, and second were some logs, and third were the devotions missed for 5 days consecutively. 5:30 p.m. Glendora drove to the court. 6 p.m. the door was open. 6:15 p.m. she rapped on the clerk's closet door to get a stamped, dated copy of her opening statement, left on Dixon's chair this morning. Nobody would open up. Glendora could hear both Dixon's voices, and the traffic victims began to arrive, and the plaintiff, that is the village, could produce no corpus delicti, that is, an injured person. The point here, folks, is that if you get picked up for not having a seatbelt, the state has no case against you, because in order to have a case against you, the state has to present an injured party, and you didn't injure anybody by not wearing a seatbelt. That's mandated by common law, meaning the village has no case against these victims. But they don't know that. Glendora rapped 10 minutes later, and nobody would open up. It's now 6:15 p.m., and 5 minutes later, Glendora tried again, and again there was no answer. And this went on for about 4 more tries. The court did not respond. I was trying to get my paper, date stamped. Received. Kleinbaum was there with another client. The client asked Kleinbaum, "How's business?" And Kleinbaum replied with alacrity, "Good." That means people are in trouble. Business is good for lawyers when people are in trouble. When Police Officer McDowell came in, Glendora said, "I want to file this opening statement and get a date stamped copy for me." Said McDowell, "Well, you can do that when you go up." I want to know, why does it have to be so arduous to file papers in the Chatham Village Court? This is an abominable violation of due process. Glendora cannot successfully prosecute her case against an Italian enterprise with such dysfunctionalism. Such ambush is a blatant obstruction of justice. Remedy is demanded. Zeta Zeta. Nobody ever calls a case. The only way that Glendora knows she should approach the bench is she sees Kleinbaum slithering around the bench with Natalia near him, and Kleinbaum talking to Dixon and Dixon responding. That's the only way you know. Why didn't he just call the case? When this was happening, simultaneously, Glendora saw a clerk, Mrs. Dixon, and asked her to date stamp the same paper by Autry on Natalia. You remember his name was Michael Autry, Gene Autry? Michael Autry served the paper on Natalia. Simultaneously, her judge husband said to Glendora, while he pointed to her the opening statement with the March 22nd 110-page affixed to it as Exhibit A, "I'm not going to take this." Dixon should have waited until Glendora was done with the filing before talking to Kleinbaum and listening to Kleinbaum. Glendora cannot do two things at once: file a paper and attend a hearing. And how are the papers? Oh, and here are the papers signed and dated received. There's Mrs. Dixon's. The clerk came out with his paper signed, and Glendora asked the clerk to sign the next paper, and this is the paper that you see as page 71, not marked. And when Clerk Dixon brought back the second paper, she took back the first paper saying, "I have to put the time on this one." Double screen. You have to have two screens. I'm over here trying to file these papers, which I tried to file all day long. And the court is so dysfunctional you can't get them filed. And over here on this screen is Kleinbaum and George Dixon doing things ex parte that aren't good for my case. This account needs a split screen to report what was going on simultaneously with Judge Dixon. First, Glendora was robbed of the time needed to peruse the signature and date. She does not know what this says. Do you know what it says? She was interrupted by Kleinbaum and Judge Dixon about adjournment and vacate, and that's to be reported next. Okay, there's the first volume out of 3. We're going to read 10 more pages, 71 up to 80, because I made the commitment to you that I'd read 20 at a time. Okay. Well, here is the opening statement that Dixon would not receive, and how you're going to adjudicate a case if you don't know what's going on. Now that was signed by his wife, the clerk of the court. And Dixon said that he wouldn't take this paper, and yet she signed it received. That's Glendora's opening statement, which she requests be filed before the hearing of March the 30th. An opening statement is the minimum a litigant is allowed. Glendora wants this statement filed before the hearing on March the 30th, or as soon after as she can be heard. She wants to make sure it is in the record. Let the so-called petitioners state their case and rest, and let Glendora read her opening statement without interruption. That's the first page of it. Should I stop now and read you the opening statement? Well, let's reserve on that, okay? Page 72. Now here is what has happened simultaneously with Kleinbaum and Judge Dixon. Kleinbaum was saying something about adjournment to April the 13th to go with this other case that she brought. That's the case that I brought against Nasty Natalia for April 13th. Dixon said adjournment to the 13th. All right. Something out for that, and he wrote it down. And Glendora was not given time to think whether she wanted to oppose or not. That's pretty bad. Whether it was just or proper. And as it turned out, I should have objected to it, because Dixon did 2 cases in one night. Natalia's phony case against me and my case against Natalia, and that's too much for one night, particularly for me, all alone, impounded on by these 3 people. What George Dixon and James Kleinbaum were doing was ex parte. There might have been some other talk while Glendora was so busy getting the papers filed, time and date stamped. But one thing Glendora was able to attend was Kleinbaum ordering the judge to get a statement from Glendora that she vacated. Kleinbaum leads the judge around by the nose. Said George Dixon to Glendora, "Did you vacate?" And he was looking up to her in the eye for the first time that night. Glendora needed time to weigh the matter, to answer, and she said, "Did I vacate?" Looking George Dixon straight in the eye. In unacceptable theatrics, George Dixon put his head down, his arm akimbo, with his hand covering his forehead, and wagged his head left to right. Glendora waited for him to come back to consciousness and look at her, and looking straight at him, she said, "Did I vacate?" "Yes." Now what need was there for this bizarre behavior of George Dixon? His conduct is not equal nor commensurate to the job that is to be done. Justice. He totally fails at the proposed end. Was this all? No. Insert that Glendora heard Kleinbaum say to George Dixon, when mentioning adjournment, something about no more eviction issue. She vacated some damages. Now, is this a court of record? No. This is why Dixon gets by with this outrageous conduct. Glendora was at one end of the table with the bench, quote unquote, filing, and Kleinbaum was at the other end of the table as seeking adjudication. Also insert that while Glendora was sitting in the back of the room waiting to file, Kleinbaum went in and out of the clerk's office freely. If he did, so should have Glendora been able to do the same. On one of these pirouettes, Kleinbaum called Natalia out of the room. Within 2 minutes she was back, and what do you suppose happened? Adjourn it to the 13th and do both together. That's what probably happened. We're on page 74. After "Did you vacate?" Glendora waited to see if anything else was going to happen. Just as there is never any announcement the case is called, there is never any announcement that the hearing is over. Glendora saw Kleinbaum gathering his papers and leaving. So Glendora did the same. Ada. If Glendora had not been ambushed, she would have sternly pointed out again to George Dixon for the 5th time that the petitioners had not given this court jurisdiction over Glendora. What you have read on these last 8 pages has been an abhorrent denial of due process, the Constitution, the Magna Carta, and common law. Does the flag have a yellow fringe around it? No. That is one good thing. If a flag has a yellow fringe around it, folks, remember that means that the court is an admiralty court. And you would have to have committed some international crime. So if you ever go into court and it has a yellow fringe around it, just tell them that the court has no jurisdiction over you, that it's an admiralty court, and you have not committed an offense on the high seas. Theta Theta, Sixth Amendment violation remedied. Sitting on the bench outside the George Dixon courtroom, which bench was close to the town clerk's office door, Glendora, seeing McDowell going in and out, asked, "May I go in and watch the proceedings?" And McDowell said, "Sure." He's the policeman who, quote unquote, served Glendora but really failed at it. Before Glendora went into the courtroom during the long wait, 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. or so, a woman approached Glendora. She says, "I'm Averill. You remember? You met me at the Reformed Church. Is there a problem with Natalia?" I'm not going to talk to her. And Natalia tells me there's a problem. "Remember you asked the congregation to pray for Natalia?" Glendora did remember, but she would not talk to this woman and indicated saying, "You better think about it, especially after that prayer." She turned and left. What was that all about? She looked Portuguese. That woman, accompanied by a younger woman who looked like her, stayed in the courtroom all the time Glendora was in the courtroom. Back out in the lobby, Glendora sat down and thought a few moments. When she exited Town Hall and descended the stairs, Natalia, on the sidewalk, was talking to Averill and the other female. Glendora had to pass within 3 feet of them. There was no exchange, not even a glance, and Glendora went to the car, waited until they left, checked that she was not being followed, and then drove off into the dark night. This is page 77. This was the second time that Glendora had been fraudulently called to court with no statutory authority. Perpetrators will be fully prosecuted. Kappa Kappa. Bristled by Dixon's ineptitudes and inadequacies, the next morning Glendora began writing an application, this very paper, this instant paper, for George C. Dixon to recuse, pursuant to New York State analog to the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure. Withdraw that. New York State analog to Title 28 U.S. Code, Sections 144 and 354. No American should stand for Dixon's violations of U.S. traditions, interests, and ideals. Every day thereafter, Glendora worked on this paper for 1 hour, the first thing every morning after chores. Yesterday, Monday, Thursday, Holy Week, she decided to sue Dixon. The Natalia Enterprise, Kleinbaum, and the Chatham Police in the United States District Court, Chicago. Violations of civil rights under color of state, Title 42, Section 1983, and Section 1985, conspiracy. She may also sue the same in the United States District Court, Northern District of New York, Albany. She may also sue them in the Supreme Court, State of New York, County of Columbia. Additional causes of actions are Criminal Code, Title 18, U.S. Code, Section 1001, lying and misrepresenting, trickery. I'll read it to you. Sections 1001 of Title 18 of the United States Criminal Code provides as follows. Whoever, in any matter within the jurisdiction of any department or agency of the United States, knowingly and willfully falsifies, conceals, or covers up by any trick, scheme, or device a material fact, or makes any false, fictitious, or fraudulent statements, or representations, or makes or uses any false writing or document, knowing the same to contain any false, fictitious, or fraudulent statement, or entry, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 5 years, or both. And another cause of action against all of these people, the Dixons, Nasty Natalia, Kleinbaum, liar for hire, and the village of Chatham, is fraud. Now here's a long dissertation on fraud. It's very, very interesting. That an intentional perversion of truth for the purpose of inducing another in or with some valuable thing belonging to him, or to surrender a legal right, or a false representation of a matter of fact, whether by words or by conduct, by false or misleading allegations, or by concealment of that which should have been disclosed, this is Natalia, which deceives and is material to deceive another, so that he shall set upon it to the legal injury. That's what fraud is. Some of it, and there's more about it. And we are up to page 81. And it's bedtime. All people that on earth do dwell, sing to the Lord with cheerful voice. Him serve with mirth, his praise forth tell. Come ye before him and rejoice. You see how that is? We rejoice every 15 minutes. You and I do that, right? We rejoice about the storm that washed the earth. Yeah. Hi, folks. This is a new day. What are we going to do with it? I am going to stand up for poor tenants who are beaten down by nasty landlords and avaricious lawyers and justices and judges in courts who get a piece of it. Nasty landlords. and avaricious lawyers and justices and judges in courts who get a piece of it. And in this instant case, the names of those people are Nasty Natalia and Preferred Country Properties in Chatham, the village of Chatham, and her liar for hire, James Kleinbaum, and the judge in this action, who is trying to get a piece of it, is George C. Dixon. And we have a complication that we never had before in a court, that George Dixon's wife is the clerk of the court. And we are reading this 220-page complaint to you, and we are up to page 80, which is pretty good. So now we will do 81 to 100. And do you want to stop for jokes after that? I have some jokes for you. The New York State Real Property Law, the New York State Real Property Actions and Proceedings Law, over 10 counts, including but not limited to violations of warranty of habitability and possession of the premises. Natalia Enterprise further violated the New York State General Obligations Law in not depositing the security deposit in a special account and notifying us of the location of the account and sending us the interest in January 2004. It is a New York State statute that a landlord cannot commingle the security deposit. This is conversion. These forthcoming defendants have got the village of Chatham into deep trouble. Indeed, the said village may also be a defendant. So step forth, Corporation Counsel. Paragraph 315 is reserved. This section is lambda lambda. Jot thoughts. Addenda taken from Glendora, Nasty Natalia blog. Glendora likes seeing people at their best, not their worst. She prays ardently for you, that you will be the perfect people God is calling you to be. This is Holy Week, Good Friday. And I think that we forgot to do our rejoicing at 8:30, so let's do it right now. See if I can remember this hymn. All people who on earth do dwell, sing to the Lord with cheerful voice. Hymn. That's such a nice line. I don't know why I can't remember. Him serve with mirth, his praise forth tell. Come ye before him and rejoice. People get as much justice in the Chatham Village Court as Jesus the Christ got from Pontius Pilate. Glendora's friend George in Maryland, unable to reach her because of phone disconnect, because of moving, because of Nasty Natalia, conclave, called the Chatham Village Police. George McDermott in Washington, D.C. called the Chatham Village Police. They told George that Glendora had been evicted. This is a lie. And it's nothing to sneeze at. Pardon me. This is a lie. Produce a warrant of eviction. There was none. Glendora left voluntarily. She didn't want to be there anymore because of Nasty Natalia and because of the nasty things that go on in the village of Chatham, Columbia County, state of New York. This is also damage to her reputation. Police further told George that Glendora had a few things left to move out, and this is also a lie. Glendora had already emptied the apartment. Glendora had already vacated, and the police are sued for violation of privacy and false reports. April the 9th, for Anno Domini, Good Friday. George Dixon's attitude goes way beyond bias and prejudice. There is hatred in his eyes, indeed in his whole body. But it's more than that, folks. He's going to get a piece of this action. He's going to get a piece of the money. Natalia said one time that cats would stain the linoleum. There is no carpeting in the apartment. Staining linoleum is bizarre. Again, Glendora takes a stand against rings like these. Evil landlords, avaricious lawyers, and paid-off judges. They are the rings that are making people homeless. We know for a fact in Albany, from Perry Jones, from the Albany Mission, that 300 to 400 people come there each day to eat, and a couple of hundred people come there each night to sleep. Here is the richest country in the world, and here in Albany, New York, the Mission, feeding 400 homeless a day and sleeping 200 a night. This is caused by people like Nasty Natalia, Liar for Hire James Kleinbaum, and Give Me a Piece of the Action George Dixon.